Hi, all. My name is Jeff Hewlett. I'm a decision confidence builder. I lead Personal Finance Reimagined, a decision making and financial education platform. So every month we focus on a different topic around decision making, a high impact topic. And this month is no different. This month is all about college decision making, the ins and the outs. And anybody who's listened in and paid any attention to our focus of this month, I'm kind of an ROI guy, right? A return on investment. So I focus a lot on really thinking about things like costs and the financing side of it. But certainly we cover from A to Z all the different areas about being a high school student, getting into college. And then once you get into college, how are you successful as a college student? So part of this, and I'm super, super excited to introduce Lee Norwood. So Lee Norwood is the founder of Annapolis College Consulting and a leader in college advising. Lee has worked with hundreds of students and visited countless colleges, helping families navigate the college application process with less stress. We'll, we'll explore her approach and insights to guiding students through the ever-changing college landscape. So, Lee, so glad to have you here.
I am really excited to be here. I'm excited to be with you face to face. I know we have some personal connections through college. I mean, isn't that so cool? So many good things come out of college. So making the right decision and spending the right amount of money and all of those things leads to a lifetime of excitement and connection. So thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So if it's okay, I'm just gonna, Lee, I'm just gonna go ahead and just jump right in. So, you know, and we've had these conversations before, and it's been so nice to get to know you. But one of the things I know about you is that you have visited hundreds, probably pushing on thousands of colleges and worked with countless students. So, what are some of the most important factors you encourage students and their families to consider when making those college decisions?
I think a big buzzword in our industry right now is fit and finding the right fit for you and for your family. And that can take on lots of different iterations. Is it your financial fit? This is my budget. Therefore, is it your, if I don't go to an Ivy, my grandparents will roll over in their grave. I must fit into that highly selective. Is it fit because you've known since you were 3 years old that you want to be an engineer? So you want a top engineering program in your wheelhouse, or is your fit, I have no idea, I'm 17, where can I go where I can discover who I am? So I think that fit can be financial, geographic, academic, social. So I can't give you a very most important thing except that you need to know what you're
Right.
looking for.
Well, let me ask you. So it's interesting. So part of what I do is I counsel high school students as well, and probably maybe a little bit differently. I'm usually focused more on first generation students, and especially those that might be from lower to moderate income families that may not have parents that have college as the lived experience, right? So truly first generation students. So part of the discussion around fit I have with them, and I'm really interested in your take on this, is is college now the right decision for me? Like I put in front of them ideas of armed services, gap year, going to a trade or into the trade. So I kind of start with, is even college the right decision now? I know I'm always really clear to say, hey, it's there is a college for you in this country. That's not the challenge. The challenge is, are you ready at 17 years old or however old they are, and is college right for you now? And I'm just curious, is that part of it at all for when you're counseling students?
Absolutely. And I think, most of your counseling starts at home. So I have the daughter who was always college bound from the very beginning. That was it. That was what she was doing next and very, very focused. My son, on the other hand, school's not for him. I'm not sure if he's not the smarter one in the family, honestly, but it just didn't fit for him, the school. A little bit of ADHD, a little dysgraphia. it was not for him. So it wasn't a financial commitment we wanted to move into next. So we were thinking, well, what is next? He went through Cat South, which in our area is kind of like a VOTEC, and learned mechanical and cars and things like that, and fell in love with it. And then when everyone started talking about college in his high school, and our high school does have lots of kids who go to college, but for him, it wasn't his journey. And he is now a proud U.S. Marine. He's stationed in San Diego and just got back from a 9-month deployment. As a mom, I'm thrilled that he's back. But I've seen his growth, his ability to make connections, the fact that the military has seen his just ability to be a leader and make decisions. So college wasn't the right thing for him. And he is right exactly where he's supposed to be. So he took a completely different track. He went trades. He liked trades. He transferred that into military. So we have all of those talks working with 17-year-olds. You know, the frontal lobe is not always completely developed, and lots of kids need a little time. I
Yep.
love a gap year. I almost look back and wish I had taken one. Just a time to figure out who you are, what's important to you, what experience you can have outside of your neighborhood that might launch you into wherever you want to go next. And then another topic would be first generation kids. I think that's a little bit of a shift. I could speak on those points.
Okay. Well, one of the areas we, kind of going down that, pulling on that ROI string a little bit, one of the concerns, right, is, you kind of got I call it the easy money Department of Education loan program, right? And then they can leave you with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, right? And so part of the message that I like to give the students is, when you're thinking about it, think about it from a practical standpoint, right? Like, you're going to go to a college and you're going to graduate from that college. Now, there's a lot of different paths. For example, if you went to community college first and transferred, you could save upwards of 90% off on the same gen ed that you might take at that 4-year residential college. So I try to put in front of them like those different options, right, to get them thinking about it. Now, some of them may have family money or have those resources that make it not as big of a deal, but sometimes they absolutely don't. So we try to get into those. So I was just curious in what you're doing in your practice. How do you sort of roll in some of that thinking around the finances?
I think there are a lot of different ways to skin this. One thing is that I want kids who maybe don't have a family history of higher education to understand that they can go to college for substantial discounts if they do a few of the right things. So if college is the right track for them, there is, of course, the community college, but if they want that 4-year, they don't have to say, I can't play that game because no one is guiding me. We love guiding those kids. We love saying, let's test again. Let's talk about what colleges are looking for. And then financially, and as you know, I'm sure, Jeff, you talked to them about, filling out the FAFSA, the free
Right.
application for federal aid, things like that. If you have a high level of financial need, there are schools in this country that meet 100% of that need. So you just need to produce yourself or present yourself as a student for that school that's the right fit for that school. You can go to Harvard and pay $80,000. You can go to Harvard and pay $2,000. All of that depends on your family's income and whatever that student aid index is. And that is so far off. The kids don't even know what that means. So we like educating them a little bit about what colleges have money to give to you because they want you on their campus. Sometimes it's because you're the smartest and you fit their mold. And sometimes it's because you fit their mold and you have a tremendous amount of need. And that's where a lot of those endowment funds for colleges come in, and you can get money. So there's schools that are going to give you money and there's schools that aren't. So we're kind of back to that fit thing again.
Right, right. Wow, that is truly amazing. No, I love the way you're talking about that, and to me, it's the ability to make those sort of financial decisions. Which actually, one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know if you see this, but I feel like sometimes in families, and maybe a lot of families, money's kind of a taboo thing. So I'll ask the question, do you know how you're paying for this? Or have you had that discussion with your mom or dad, or the family unit? how it's going to be paid for. And I can't tell you how many times, they look at me with a blank face. So I'm just curious, how do you encourage maybe those more difficult to have family money discussions?
All right, I just bring it up first. I have a great video called The ABCs of Paying for College. I send that to all of my kids before they even meet with me. And I also send them a great video by Malcolm Gladwell called Ask Me Why I Said Yes to This Talk. And he really talks about the ROI, the return on investment, where you need to go, and how you don't need to spend the most money to get the best degree. So we lay it out straight up, because let me tell
Right,
you, this is the worst thing that can happen. You worked really hard. You did those 10 extra essays, and all you wanted to do was get into XYZ college, and you get in, you got the yes, and then your parents
right,
give you the no. That stinks. So let's not
right,
go there. Let's not do that work. Let's look at it on the front end.
right, right. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I talk about money straight up first. It's not taboo for me. I just feel like we just get so much cleared out of the
right,
way. It will change a kid's list in the first 15 minutes of the conversation
right,
if I say, great, you like Tulane? Unless you're paying full price and you're going to go early decision, you're not going to get in, because they fill 70% of their class with those kids. Are you still willing to do the work? And when you do, are you willing to pay the money because you're stuck with it?
right,
And a lot of times they'll go, wow, didn't think about that second, third, and fourth step.
right. Well, you mentioned Malcolm Gladwell, and it reminds me of, and maybe it's a takeoff of that, but the book he wrote, David and Goliath, where he talks about that university of, I guess it was somebody, they went to, a young lady went to Brown, was a hot shot or whatever, was a superstar in high school, and she ended up just it not working out. She felt under pressure and didn't feel like it was a good fit, and it ended up being a real problem. She ended up transferring, and I think it worked out, but she basically flunked out of Brown, right? And so, to me, that example that Gladwell gives, and there's probably thousands or hundreds of thousands even of examples just like that, really go back to what you said about fit, right? Like, let's get this right up front, and let's not be starstruck about, I've got to go to this selective school or that selective school. It doesn't really matter. All that really matters is that we find the right fit.
Yes, and that you get the usual suspects out of the way. Depending on where I am, I can usually name 5 or 6 schools that the kids from that area are gonna put on their list. And that's because a lot of high school students only hear it in the movies on the sidelines, maybe from a parent or just from chatter in the hall at the high school. That doesn't mean that those are the only schools worth going to. There are some schools that'll give 100% placement out of school. And they might be an odd name, like the Missouri School of Science and Technology. Like, my kids around on the East Coast aren't talking about that. They just got a $600 million donation. They are growing their programs like crazy, and they've got that money to give to kids that have potential, not that are the smartest and not that can pay full price. The kids that they see that are going to have potential and build their reputation for the future in science and tech. So, really getting kids to shift off of the usual suspects and listen to us. We've been there, we've done that. We know this school places you, and the jobs
Right.
that you get when you get out are phenomenal. You can get out of University of Georgia and never work a day in your life, but you went to the most popular #1 football school in the country. Yeah,
Right.
you wasn't the right fit. So
Right.
having those, that's hard with a 17-year-old though, Jeff. I mean, don't you agree?
Oh my God.
It
Yeah.
really
I
is.
mean, yeah, I think what you opened with is the executive functioning skills, the frontal lobe, that part of their brain. It doesn't get done till 25. So it's almost not fair that we're asking a 17-year-old to basically be the beneficiary of the decision that they ultimately have to live in when their brain's half cooked. It's just there's a reason
And if
why
you don't
insurance
have
companies don't reduce your rates until you're 25, right? I mean, it's kind of
exactly,
weird.
but it's true. And if you don't have a parent that's been there, done that to guide you, you're a
Yes.
little like just off in left field. All these states have great in-state schools that a lot of kids just jump over because they think, oh, I got to get out of here. I promise you, you're not going to be visited all the time by family. And I promise you that you really won't, doesn't matter where you are, you're going to find your friends wherever you are, and you're going to have a great experience. But kind of getting that through can be a
Right.
little bit tough.
So I wanted to shift gears actually to a really a topic that I really love, and one of character, okay, and character in college admissions. So when I think about decision making and how our brains sort of work, to me there are two sides to good decisions. There's the willingness side, and then there's the capacity side. And sometimes I feel like the capacity, I have good grades, I have good study skills. Those are capacity things. But willingness, right, which to me relates to character, is, am I willing to do this very uncertain thing? Do I have the desire and the drive to go forward? Do I have a strength of character? So when I look at some of what we've talked about before, and I know you're a member of the Character Collaborative. So I was just curious, how do you see the role of character evolving in college admissions, especially given the changes, right, with standardized testing and other traditional application components?
That is interesting and a great question because I'm still getting my head around it. We all know that character matters. How does a student show that when they basically look like a piece of paper to an admissions officer? So it comes down to your voice. It comes down to your voice, and often past actions are a good predictor of future success. So these kids really need to focus on telling their story in their personal statement. It is not an English essay. It is a personal statement. It's very different, showing who you are, the commitment to activities and longevity of activities. I tell kids, I am going to cut your time way down because I'm going to have you stop doing everything you don't like. There's no reason to chase things because you think it looks good to a college. I would rather see you do something over and over and over and have measurable results because it meant something to you. And if that was making sure that all the lights were off so that the turtles could make it to the ocean because you live on the beach in the South and you do that
Right,
every single season, that shows character to me, right?
right,
More than I, I did 15,000 charities an hour at each one because my mom made me. So I think it's what you do, explaining how you do it well in the application, and then showing your voice in writing. Um, yeah, and jobs. What do you do with your free time? And
right.
then we all know that teacher recs are a little wonky these days. I mean, you've got counselors who have 460 kids. How direct and spot on is their
Right,
discussion about you as a
right,
student? Where you've got a private school who that teacher had 25 kids, they're going to have better recommendations. So schools
right,
are a little wonky about recs, but if you can get a teacher rec from a teacher that can tell who you are in the halls of
right,
that school, that you're the kid that helps if somebody drops their beaker in science class and cleans it up. If you're the kid who
right,
stays after to help others, those are the kind of great things. He's a joy to have in class. That's the most boring teacher recommendation I've ever heard. I want to hear, what did that student do to really push through and maybe take it from a C to an A, or helping other students? That's character. And
right,
our young kids have it. They're just not exactly sure how to show it.
right. Well, I'm going to ask you a funny question, and this is a question actually from my experience. So, you know, as a business leader and having managed probably, hundreds, if not thousands of peoples over my career, I get asked to make recommendations or do recommendation letters for former employees all the time. So my habit is I want you to write it based on our experience together, but write it from me, send it to me, and then I'll go through it and I'll make any corrections or whatever. So that has two purposes. One is I want to make sure they're really into it, and they're willing to do that. And so it sort of shows a little investment. But then ultimately for me, selfishly, it's just a lot easier than me having to remember all the stuff that we did, right? So does that ever come about? I'm just curious if that ever comes up. Do you ever have students write the recommendation for the teacher and say, I don't know if you remember all these things, but I just wanted to give this to you?
Yeah, 100%. Some schools have it in a formalized way. That's called a brag sheet.
Okay.
Some kids put together a resume, but
Right.
I don't ever think that has enough personality to it. I
Got
tell
it.
my kids, I want you to feed your potential recommender sound bites about you that you would like nothing more for them to cut and paste.
Right.
Because maybe they forgot that You
Absolutely.
stayed after those 25 days in a row to really get your head around calc, pre-calc, so you could go to calc AB. And you really pushed for, I need to be in AP Lang. I need to, please, I want that instead of, honors English 11 or 12, because this is who I am and where I want to go. They forget those things. And we only have so much capacity. And then we're off all summer, luckily, if you're a teacher. So yeah, you have to feed it. You don't get what you don't ask for in life. You know that.
Mm,
And I don't think that that's cheating. I would read that and say,
right.
oh, wow, wow, she did that. You're right. She did that.
Right.
And it's going to
Yeah.
help me get better recommendation. So it's the brag sheet. If they don't do brag sheets, we have kids do those. I think resumes are, they're just tough. They're truncated, and just like those
Yeah.
activities with 150 characters, like you can't even get it out what you've done. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No, that's absolutely. It sounds like we're kind of on the same page for sure. Well, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk now, yeah, actually more about you and the business of college consulting. So you've presented on topics like growing your practice, remaining relevant at national conferences. So you're a national voice in this space. So what advice would you give to other college consultants about staying relevant in such a kind of fast-changing, dynamic, and competitive industry?
I don't know. I think I've got the character that just makes me want to do that. Um, I
Yeah.
will say, there's one thing about being a fabulous consultant or counselor to a few students because you know what's going on. It's another thing to want to grow a business. Those are two very different skill sets. I come from big pharma. I was there for 23 years. I did it to feed my kids and be able to go to games, and I was a single mom, so it fit me financially. It didn't feed my soul. So the minute I could, I left to do something like this that feeds my soul. I love growing the business. How do I stay relevant? I knew Billy Strings before Billy Strings was Billy Strings. If you don't know him, you need to go listen to him. I know what's going on with not beyond just Taylor Swift. I understand what the kids are doing, and I try to get close to my kids every year so that they're texting me, hey, Miss Lee, this happened, that happened. I want to know what's happening in their lives because I aged out. My kids are both
Right.
gone now. So I don't have my thumb on what's happening at high school
Right.
anymore. So I use my kids as a conduit for that. So I stay relevant that way. I also, and you're going to think I'm nuts, but I spend the first 2 hours of every morning doing horizontal thinking. What does that mean? I lay in bed with my cell phone. I read Forbes. I read higher education. I read everything I can. I scour competitors' websites. I just want to know what's happening right now so that I can speak to it. I will say right now I'm in North Carolina. Western North Carolina just got devastated. Two
Yes.
schools in Western North Carolina had to not even have kids back. One of my
Gone.
favorites is Lee's McRae. Um, Being able to then take all my marine science and ag kids, and also, I guess, environmental science kids, and say, hey, this is what's going on in Western North Carolina. And this, you need to see what your schools are doing to help situations like that. Just keeping your finger on what's going on to help them stay relevant too. I'm able to grow my business because I'm helping my kids every day. If I go to a school and I think, oh, Jim would love being here, I'm going to text him about it. So the relevance question is there. You just have to want to be a part of today's
Nice.
teenage society. You couldn't pay me $1 million to work with a middle schooler. Not happening.
Been
But I
there,
love
done that,
being
right?
a junior and a senior. And so I think just knowing what's important to them, I made a huge mistake this year, and I'm going to just own up to it right now. Somebody wrote an essay on anxiety, and I've read 50 essays on anxiety this year. And finally, with this girl, I said, my God, you just sound like everybody else. Everybody's got anxiety. Well, I didn't seek first to understand. This girl had debilitating anxiety. She had gone through lots of things to overcome her anxiety. It wasn't just some stress and teenage,
Right.
I'm overscheduled stuff. And I stepped back and thought, I have to seek first to understand uh, before I judge anyone or anything. And that was a big mistake and a big eye opener for me this year, because these kids are under a lot of pressure. Look, we were under pressure too. I had to figure out if I was going to wear a mullet or feather my hair. Their pressure is very different with just the, COVID
Absolutely.
threw us a curveball. So
Right.
I hope that answered my relevance question. Growing
Oh,
your
yeah.
business question, I think, is a little different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's you are on a wonderful path, and from what I can see. And so yeah, so I think it's an important question because certainly it's to me it's a space that needs help, right, for a variety of reasons. And our world is changing quickly with now with like AI and Gen AI, and to me just the acceleration. And to your point, it creates anxiety, right? To some degree, the speed of the world, while it felt fast to me when I was in high school, it's probably like warp speed today. Frankly, I'm couldn't imagine and kind of glad that I got through that when I did, because I think it'd be a lot
I know.
harder today. Um,
I like to tell my kids, look, my generation invented the internet. We didn't perfect it and we don't know how to use it, but we invented
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But I
no,
will say one thing I did take from pharma. There was a much more structured business to be in, like finance is a more structured business.
mhm,
They always taught their leaders in pharma to have a younger mentor. I think that's brilliant. It's great to have the older mentor who you want to be when you grow up, but having a younger mentor, I talk with my kids a lot and bring them back when they're in school to talk to my kids. I have a student right now who's going to come and talk to all of my kids, and he's applying to school this year. But the way he grabbed what he wanted and what he loved and ran forward with it, I think they're going to listen to him more. They're going to
right.
listen to me. So I think having younger mentors is a huge way to stay relevant.
I completely agree. And so Lee, we're at the point where it's about time for us to wrap up. But before we wrap up, what I really wanted to do is, you know, your company is an Annapolis College Consulting, but also you've got College Sharks. I know you have some big growth plans. Could you just tell us a little bit about your direction, and what Annapolis Consulting, College Sharks, or the other companies that you're focused on? What does that look like maybe a year or two from now?
So 5 years ago, I started saying we, and it was just me because I knew that my end goal was to have a we, which was a team, and I brought on some great people so that we can help more students. As Annapolis College Consulting, we're either a one-on-one price, right, or we're maybe doing some pro bono work. But there's a huge gap in the middle of kids that just need help and need more guidance than their school can maybe give them, but they can't afford the price point of a one-on-one consultant. So we started College Sharks to beat AI. I've got to get this out there before you're talking to robots about this. We dump bite-sized chunks of information into our Shark Tank. You're either on the junior year or the senior year track, and it's 4 to 6 short 8 to 12 minute videos every month that tells you what to do, why you're doing it, when to do it, how to do it, actionable steps. And what I love, because I am a kid of the 70s, I love a good workbook. But with that, you're getting my and my team's expert guidance. We had a school counselor come in and I interviewed her a little bit, kind of what you're doing, but it's really targeted to where you are right now in your school.
Hmm.
Like, hey, it's May. Let's think about teacher recs. It's just a really inexpensive way for us to either A, reach more kids, and also
Right,
I can put kids in for free. So
right,
I'm going out to schools saying, give me your 10 top potential kids who just don't have the family support. We're going
right.
to put them into sharks and let them roll. So
Love
that's
that.
that's the next step. Got to get there
Well,
before the robots are telling you.
I was looking at the stats not long ago, and there's about 4-ish million students in this country at each level. So between junior and senior year, there's about 8 million total students. Your reach now with the full boat, the full Monty price is much smaller than that, right? So to me, it's like, how do you reach the other, 7.9 plus million kids that could really use help? And my head goes to, because I teach personal finance, I know how incredible, the wealth distribution in our country continues to sort of to bifurcate, which means there's rich people that can afford it, but there's just the you come down that slope really fast. So I really applaud you for, and to some degree, that's what I'm doing with College Choice, which I know we've talked about, which is our technology, but it's the same idea. How do you create an environment that makes economic sense for the provider, but also provides that high quality service that will really help the student make the best college decision. So, we should probably somehow figure out how to work together, because I think
Well, I
in
was
some
just
ways we're
thinking
going
I
down
could
the
get them
same path.
ready, and then I get them totally ready and have their list, and then they can plug it into College Choice and figure out which ones are really the right ones for them.
Right,
So I think we just moved both of our businesses forward today because of that. And I
yeah,
don't want to ignore the middle class because we get
right,
squeezed. If you are in a lower economic status and you're a smart kid who really wants to go to college and you're going to follow our lead, we're going to get you grants. We're going to get you money. We're going to help you lower that cost of tuition. Because if the school wants you, they're going to do that. If you're in the middle class and throwing 50 grand a year out the window, not out the window, wrong words. Throwing $50,000 a year at a college education for your kid feels like you're about to choke and die. That's real. We get squeezed. There's no money coming to us for need-based aid, and there's only minimal amounts of merit aid scholarships. And the more selective the school, the less scholarships. They don't have to give you money. Somebody behind you will pay full price, and they're
right.
just as smart. So that squishing of the middle class is another really, really sweet spot for me, because I don't think anybody should pay full price for college. And if you work with me, we're going to find you some schools who are going to give you what you want, and you're not going to go broke doing it.
All right. Well, with that, Lee, I think that's a great way to finish up. Thank you so much for joining today. It's been a perfect addition to our College Decision Month.
I'm so happy like that we're doing this. This is what we need to do. More people need to hear reality-based people talking about real stuff going down, and spread facts, not germs. And you're doing a great job. Thank you for having me on. I'm really was happy to be here, and I'm happy to be one of your friends.